appreciate all the hearts. Yeah. But yeah, I am live. So you see, I've been watching more VTuber clips, and when I watch VTuber clips, that causes me want to stream. The other things I've been working on. So, in my unplanned hiatus, I made a video game. Oh, not a video game. It's more of a visual novel. I made a visual novel, slash maybe very light on rules dating sim. So I did that. And I've been building the next generation of my VTuber software. Waifu. Yeah! Oh hell yeah, yeah! So I built the next generation of my VTuber software. So this generation that I'm currently using right now, it only streams me. But in the next generation, I want to make it so that it can stream other models. For example, like you make the text, or so it's waifu 2 tier, and in theory, this software, my dream is that when I'm done with it, I can release it for free, because selling software sounds like a nightmare. I can release it for free, and then maybe I can convince at least one other VTuber to use it sometimes. So, what is it called? In VTuber Studio. I hope to update my nut model with the new software. Eventually, yes. So the plan is first, I make a new character who's not me, who will be like the default character. Her name is Kan-chan, or Kantan-chan, I think is what I called her. It's easy in Japanese. Because she's purposely has a simple design but I want to eventually rebuild my whole self in this software. So I kind of want to figure out the design for Kantan-chan. Is her name, isn't it? Yes, it is. So I think that a good plan might be first rebuild this super simple girl, then rebuild me again. And then after I build me in the new software, then my idea is I go off like anime girl test tube baby. Yeah, well, I'm a little like anime girl test tube baby already. Me being a manufactured in a lab and all. So then the idea is maybe I will post somewhere, see if I can get a hold of somebody who's mildly technical and is a VTuber and runs Linux, and then I can build a model for them. That's not how you spell VTuber. VTuber. So this is roughly the plan. Well, it's the plan today. Yesterday, while you were practicing doing this stream, you did an entirely different plan. Yeah, so like last night, I kind of wanted to stream, but I was also like scared, and thus I just opened up my image editor and pretended to stream for like an hour. That helped take the edge off of the thought of streaming at some point in the future. And now here I am today streaming. So, what was I saying? So like, Such kind words! Oh, this is all so impressive. I've always wanted to try making a model, but so intimidating. But you're doing that and making your own software for it. Oh! So how to make your own model? So I will describe so I've never actually made a model with VTuber Studio. Or like, no, it's a Live 2D. Live 2D is what we call it in the VTuber English community. It's actually known as something else. Live 2D is actually the company who makes it. It's called something else in the actual company. But anyways, how Live 2D works is first you draw an image of a girl. Well, I guess you could draw a guy too. It's not like there's not like a definite requirement of gender. Oh, those proportions are bad. So we have the basic idea behind Live 2D. Do you have an image? Hey, if you draw a guy, the program goes, maybe. So you actually draw the character in any image editor. So you draw an image. Ooh, that's not how necks go. Yeah. So you draw a character. And then, so this is... So when VTubers talk about their mother and their father, so the two steps are you draw the character, and that's the VTuber artist. And then this is the mama. The mama is the VTuber artist, and then you rig it, which is tradition. Rigor. Like rigor mortis, except for not like that at all. So here, you take the image, and then we put a mesh over the image. Oh wait. This copy and paste, because we're in the wonderful virtual world. Except for, like, even historically, there was ways of doing copy and paste, kinda. Namely, you could put it in like a photocopier or something and that'd give you a copy. Currently trying to flatten my layer. Yay! So what you do is oh, I need to merge with layer below, not flatten layer. So the live 2D software draws a thin, puts this onto a mesh, just like 3D graphics actually. And then to rig it, you define, you'll have your parameters. And when the parameter is over here, for example, if their head is way over here, or let's go over here, way over here, then the parameter, actually that might be a bad example. If they open the mouth really wide, then the open mouth parameter is going to be up here. And so you take the mesh that represents the mouth and you stretch it out. Which makes the image that's on that mesh bigger. Now, you may hear, if you look into this at all, you'll hear people talk about layering. This is because if you just draw an image like I did over here, as soon as you go to move it, you may say, oh, the sleeves need to wiggle. But the sleeves going to wiggle, they're going to reveal a little bit more of the hand. And thus you need to actually draw the hand underneath. This is the process that VTuber artists describe as cutting, where you will... Yeah. So you might have a model with you might have a layer for each hand, and then you make a new layer and you draw the sleeves over it. And you definitely will have I assume, always have a blank face. Then you make new layers and you put the eyes. Basically anything you want to move independently from each other, you want to put on its own layer. And they do this all in Photoshop. And in fact, so you may wonder, why do these VTubers have these toggles that take off all their clothes? Because you'd think, they only stream safer work streams. So why would they have why would they have a toggle that makes them naked? This is because, one of the features of VTube Studio is that you can take an image of some clothing and you pin it onto your model. And this is a very cheap way of having a dress up. If you want to dress up to play a video game or something. But you want to be able to turn your clothing off because they're actually naked underneath here. You want to be able to turn it off because if you had the clothing still on, the clothing might peek out, and thus, it ruined the illusion. Whoa, that's not how legs go. They go on the other side. So that's why VTubers have the ability to, some VTubers ask for the ability to toggle off their clothes. It's not just so that they can make clips when they accidentally toggle off all their clothing. Or toggle off too much clothing. So in many ways, VTubers actually work just like 3D art, or like 3D animation. And you have meshes. Yeah. Okay. So you can do this thing where you just pin on clothes like a paper doll. That's definitely one way. You can also just like have a real artist make you multiple clothes. So yeah, it's an easier time switching between outfits. Because the thing is, if you get fully rigged and drawn clothes, they're really expensive. Like $1,000 an outfit. Or so. So I would say VTubers in Live 2D, which is the industry standard, even though they're 2D, they work. The animation process is extremely similar to 3D. So we have like these. We have these polygons with texture stretched over them, and then we tweak the meshes and we make the textures distort. I'm drawing it from an angle, so the camera. I've learned how to draw cameras from 3D software. Doesn't look like you have. Okay, fair. Maybe I wasn't paying that close attention. So like the camera's looking down at this, so we have like the eyes on top, and then that renders down to a face that we shot from above. So this also. So in animation, you might naively think the smoother the animation, the better it looks. This is not my opinion. There's actually, depending on what motion you're representing, there is sometimes low frame rates actually look better than high frame rates. And because we're using the exact same tools of 3D animation, we get very smooth VTuber motion, like when they turn their head in a well-rigged, in a high-quality 2D model. When you turn your head, it basically just looks like you're turning your head in 3D, because the artist has done such a good job. Oh, not at all. You do animation high frame rates look super weird. Yeah! It's like almost unsettling amount to it. So I don't know. This isn't like on the milestone list. But the thing I'd love to do is add some sort of way in VTuber software such that so if you do animation, you likely know about the idea of you kind of like halt a little bit at like I don't know the proper term for this, but you halt a little bit at the endpoints, and then you might like draw a smear frame in between. And it'd be cool if we brought smear frames over to VTubing. So in video games, a way of kind of getting smear frames is that ease in, ease out. That's kind of the idea. I'm thinking of the idea. So I didn't explain it very well because I kind of switched what I was trying to explain halfway through. So I've read, and I'm not very experienced with animation. Like, I'm not that experienced. So I've read that if you are drawing a ball, and I've seen this too, that if you're drawing a ball animation, oh no, it's okay. I'm the one who has the control of the delay, and I was a bit scared about my internet connection today, so I didn't turn it down to minimum. However, the internet connection seems to be pretty healthy, so I could actually, oh, it's too late, I can't turn down the latency. Perhaps on next stream, I will try turning down the latency and see if that's better. So, my idea is, I'm trying to talk about the idea that if you draw a ball falling and you just follow physics and make it accelerate at a constant rate and then bounce back up to the original position. Oh. What if? Oh wait, no, that's a bad idea. I was gonna say, what if we animate it? But I don't have the cuts for Krita set up correctly. Oh, it's Krita. That's the software I'm using. But anyways, there's the idea that the animation actually looks better if you make the ball, if you move this frame up so that's like more dramatic and it goes woo wop, woo wop, woo whoops, woo wop, woo wop, instead of the more realistic woo woo. Except I'm just a creature and I can't control my movements perfectly. But anyways, in real life, because most VTubers are like human beings who then use software to model it, it means that if you just map the motion of if you have the human head, and then you map the motion of the model just onto the human head, you can see the, ooh, that's bad hair. That's nicer hair. So if you draw the, if you just map the VTuber the human head directly onto, or the human directly on to the VTuber model, then you will find that you can see real-world physics affecting how things move. And I think sometimes real physics isn't the best aesthetic of motion. It'd be cool if they could move, the VTuber model could move faster. So how I've done it, in my case, not that I'm not a real anime girl, but you see I've taken the nose of the head and I've ripped that to be the top of the VTuber head. So as the nose moves them down, the head moves a lot more than is realistic. Now this does mean that I can't actually rotate my head. I can't rotate my head. Actually, I can rotate my head a little. Kinda. As you can see, my mouth and eyes move slightly, but my blush doesn't. And thus it doesn't quite look quite right. But anyways, this is one way you can get a little more motion out of a model than if you force the person to actually move their head. But there might be some sort of heuristic that you could do where sorry, I was checking my time because I told myself I'd stream at least half an hour no matter what. I wanted to know if I was in the golden zone.
Or if you were a failure.
Yeah. But no, I wouldn't be a failure. A true failure wouldn't stream at all. Also, I really appreciate how you presumably must have me on notifications, and that makes me happy. Because you show up so quick when I stream. So a different... Ah! Exactly, I'm glad you streamed today, even if it was for a little bit. Ah! Ah! You're so kind. Mwah. What was this? Alright, so I have this idea. So if you have realistic motion that goes along like this, it might be possible to develop some sort of heuristic such that we instead make the motion more dramatic and ease in and out. Or even you combine all the middle frames into one big smear frame. So one idea is for a heuristic. Because we're working live, we don't actually know how far emotion will go when it starts to happen. Because maybe I start moving my head a little, it doesn't go anywhere. So maybe, so we need some sort of heuristic to guess when to delay the motion and then jump to the next position. So in physics, you have the position, and then you have the velocity, which is the derivative of the position. This means if we have meters, velocity is meters per second, and then you have acceleration, which is meters per second squared, because it's the derivative of velocity. It's how fast velocity is changing. And this is what we talk about in normal physics. But then, if we want to go even further, there's a conventional name called jerk, which is the change in rate of acceleration. And I have no evidence for this. I've never experimented it. But I have a theory that maybe if you graph the jerk of an object, maybe if you draw a smear frame from a peak of jerk to another peak of jerk, this is the absolute value of jerk. It's the absolute jerk. Then if you draw a smear frame between here, maybe that looks good. So anyways, now I'm going to talk about, so we talked about how Live 2D works. Now we're going to talk about the thing which I have created. So currently how it works is that we have nodes that define the image, So we might have so we have some nodes that are input from the motion tracking software. Currently, I'm using your pose tracking software. In theory, that gives me a full body image, so I could do like hand tracking and like wave. But I actually turned off hand tracking. I used to have it earlier. Now I just have hotkeys like this for head motion. What was I saying? Oh right, I was talking about hand motion. But I found because my hands would move in and out of the camera, because unfortunately webcams are mostly meant to take a picture of your face. Ah! A hotkey I have very little use for, but I have is this, which it converts my entire body into a physics object and just lets it fly naturally. So anyways, we have these nodes, and then we can draw images over them. For example, if this is the chin, in the pose software, and this is the top of head, from the pose looking, then we can draw a rectangle of a given width over these two nodes, and then we put a texture on it, namely my face. Let's go back to red. So my entire body whoops. My entire body, oops, I've broken my leg there. My entire body is actually made of rectangles stretched over nodes. I'm not actually scared, I'm just making this face so that my arms go out. Except for that's why I just said it isn't quite true. What I actually... Thank you. You gotta make me blush. So what I actually do is, so sometimes, I actually first ran into this with breast physics, was that, sometimes you actually want to distort the shape. I think you may have actually run into it first with me. Now that you mention it, that might have actually been the case. I've lost such records. But anyway, sometimes you want to draw not a perfect rectangle, instead you want to actually distort the shape. So, I have a concept in my software called a noodle, which is where you have a series of points, and then you draw a rectangle, or a series of quadrilaterals over them, and then that becomes the well, I forgot what I was saying. It becomes, that becomes where we put the texture. For example, we might then draw a face. We might draw a texture.
For example, me.
Over this, and then it gets distorted according to where the points are, even though in the original texture it's just straight up and down. So the texture gets distorted. I actually, in my current software, have no ability to do arbitrary distortions of sprites. So like in Live 2D, you have the ability to take a mesh and distort it in whatever way you want. And my software has no ability to do that. And I'm not actually planning on adding it anytime soon because I don't really have a need to. And also, well, I haven't run into a case where I thought, yes, this is something I actually need. Partly because I kind of want to embrace the 2D look and not, have like 3D-ness. I'm also a person who likes video games that have like 2D sprites in a 3D world that is like turned to face you. I think that aesthetic looks quite good. I also like it when it occasionally shows up in anime. And that there's some perfectly flat things moving in parallax actually looks better sometimes than if they were actually to change shape, like happens in reality when you change your camera, when you have realistic perspective. So it's not, so adding arbitrary distortions is not like a big priority in my software. Presumably it's a feature I might add one day. The other big difference is that Live 2D model is distributed as a binary file, which is then loaded directly into memory. So like if the binary is a bunch of ones and zeros, then your memory, when you start up the program, the memory is exactly ones and zeros. And it's a proprietary format, which is fine, I guess. I mean, it'd be nice if we had some competition, but such is life. Anyways, what was I saying? Oh, alright. So it's a binary format. You edit it using Live 2D's editor. And it's all what you see is what you get. You have your cute little waifu, and then you're distorting her face to correspond to the various different expressions she might have. You can also swap out images, but distorting the face is like the most natural thing to do. My understanding from watching tutorials, I've never done this myself, is that swapping out images is actually mildly inconvenient and not the most natural thing to do. Oh, it looks like she has a beard. This is a risk with drawing shadows onto people's faces, is that they look like they have beards, which is fine if they're men. Or I guess if you're drawing a circus. But I personally prefer my women without big, luscious beards, but everyone's different. So you edit it with like a special piece of software to modify the model. My puppets for waifuteer are defined in a text file where you describe each image, blah 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 blah, and then the waifuteer software parses this text file and turns that into a model. Is this actually easier than if you were to, I don't know, actually, if I was to actually make a what you see is what you get editor? It probably wouldn't be a more friendly end user experience for most people. Thus, this is one of the many reasons why I doubt my software will ever become industry standard. But it might become like a cool thing you can do on the side. Advantage of making it all text-based is that then adding and removing elements by the end user shouldn't be too hard, hopefully. Oh, I guess that's another reason. I'm under the impression that some VTuber artists and riggers can be a bit precious with their model, and that they don't want, like, if I went out and got a commission from just any old model creator, they would, like, not want me to, like, make my own edits, or, like, if someone rigs it, they wouldn't want me to, like, send it to a new rigger. Perhaps this is different because I'm more from, like, the open source software world, and thus, even just the software world in general, there's the idea that you pay someone to make something from you, but you don't have the rights to modify it. That feels like not a very good deal. Yeah! So I guess, in theory, the artist could still do that to people with my software. But because it's just distributed as a plain text file, it should be pretty easy for the end user to modify it yourself. So, a piece of mildly interesting factoid is that the models, when you draw them, you draw the model with the thousands of layers, or at least the bunches of layers. I think hundreds of layers these days is, like, pretty common. For, like, a high, like a industry level model rather than like a hobbyist level model. And then you save it in a Paint Shop Pro file, because for whatever reason, this is the format the VTuber, that the Live2D software opens, and that's how you get the different layers from Photoshop into Live2D. My software, as it's currently set up, saves all the layers, or every single object separately, in a different PNG file. So if you look in my folder right now that describes me, you will find, like, a face PNG, which is just a drawing of my face with no graphics, it's just my head. Actually, it's just my head. And then we have, like, our eye whites, and then pupils, and these are all saved separately. This is potentially bad ergonomics for artists. I don't know. It's this way because this is how I did it first. Also, I'm mildly annoyed when I go to mod a game and they've compressed all the assets to some special format. Like, probably that saves a file space or whatever, but I wish that the games would just have a bunch of PNGs in the folder, and thus if I was really lazy with my modding, I could just go, there's a PNG called character sheet, or character, and if I just draw my character or their character, then my character appears in the game. And this is like a really lazy form of modding that works in a few games, but these days doesn't seem to work in games anymore because they compress the files, and thus to mod, you have to try much harder and decompress the game files. and such. That is my complaint. So another thing I'm looking forward to in my next generation of software is that we yeah, decomposing the files is horrible. No. There is a type of, for a very particular set of things, that you can, like, directly modify the binary in some cases. I don't know if this would work on DRM games, because they might be encrypted or something. They're more likely to be encrypted, unless you can't, like, modify a byte. Or, like, games that have, like, anti-cheat at all. You can't, like, modify a byte and expect that byte to represent something useful. But if you just want to, like, change a string that's baked into the game, sometimes you can, like, open up a hex editor. A hex editor allows you to open a binary file, and it just shows you the hex values of all the characters. And then go off to the side, it tells you all the ASCII characters, if they turn into ASCII characters. And if we're working in English, then you can look it over here till you find a string like good game that's baked into the binary itself. And if you taste, definitely copy and paste the executable before you do this, because you might break the game. If you replace the text here with characters of the same length that are all ASCII, there's a good chance that this string, whatever you put here instead, for example, we say, I can't think of a good message. The bad game. Then, when the game would normally print good game, it will actually print the bad game. Is this useful? Not that often. Do I know of any mods that do it? No, I don't. A little bit close, something that I do know has been used occasionally is game. So a game is represented in memory, and it will often store certain values in certain bytes. And thus, if you want to make a cheat engine for a particular game, what you do is you write software that modifies the values in memory for the game live. If this is a way you can mod, I think this is how, like, there used to be, in the olden days of consoles, there was, like, actually, like, a software, I can't remember, not software, like a hardware tool that you plugged the game into, and then you plugged it into your Nintendo that allowed you to cheat at games. I think this is probably how that worked. Game Shark! Yeah, that sounds about right. So one thing the Live2D, as far as I know, can't do is has no concept of particles. In that if you want to, like, draw... Oh wait, actually there's several things it doesn't do. So well, actually I don't know this. My impression, and this could be very false, is that if you want to implement physics in a Live2D model, you introduce additional parameters that have like springs attached to them. Except that doesn't really make sense. I don't quite understand how physics works in Live 2D. But as far as I know, there's no ability to like, if you wanted to have tears coming up the character's eyes and then be projectile launched in an arc off of the model, I don't think you could do that easily with a physics object, because I don't think Live 2D has any concept of particles. So this is a feature that one day I hope to add to my software, and maybe if Live 2D doesn't implement it first, maybe my software will be what was I saying? Maybe then my software will have like actual features that you can't do in Live 2D. My actual niche that I'm kind of hoping for is that I can make modifying the text document easy enough that defining a character in terms of text document is possible, and you can VTubers can more easily make modifications to their model if they want to. Some modifications just to have design that will likely be extremely easy because for some things, like if you define your legs as having a particular length and then your feet are a physics item, this is how doesn't show up very much, but my feet are physics items and they just like kind of flow. At least I think that's how they're currently set up. Then you can just increase the constant that represents the lengths of your legs, and you can make your legs longer real easy. I keep describing features that I wish my software had, but it doesn't currently. So like this I'm not a super protective person, don't get your hopes up too high. So Tizia Face Connect, she came out with a new model, which is a nurse. But what really amazed me was it was the first time I've actually seen a lean forwards implementation actually look good, in my opinion. Because normally I find like the lean forwards toggles to look kind of awkward. Yeah! A very sexy nurse. It goes like down like, new model like has a very deep cleavage. I think there's like sleeves up here, something like that. Yep. Yeah. That was the lean forward thing. What shocked me was that Dizzy's new model, it seems to be rigged so that when you lean forward in real life, that's okay. So when Dizzy leans forward in real life, her model leans forward in real life. And what shocked me was it actually looked good. I don't know what specially did, but somehow the lean forward actually looked good. Perhaps this was because it was like smoothly animated, i.e. it was rigged to her actual head Z rather than to her to a toggle. Because The animations and VTuber toggles often look a bit awkward to me. I'm looking my browser history right now to see if I can find the name of the VTuber I want to mention. So, this VTuber has been like existing at the periphery of my knowledge. Unfortunately, she streams at a time that I could never like actually watch one of her streams. And I can watch her VODs. I've actually watched one or two of her VODs. I'm not that much of a VOD watcher in general. I think she used a heart. One of the hard things with nurse VTubers is that the Red Cross owns the inverted Swiss flag, and thus you aren't allowed to like draw this if you're not using it to represent the Red Cross. And this means that even though it might be very tempting to put a Red Cross on your model, you are not legally allowed to do it. It's technically not a copyright issue or a trademark issue. It's actually a special law, at least in my impression for most jurisdictions, that makes it illegal to use that to not represent the Red Cross. However, so you have to think of alternatives. In the first aid world, and recently, for whatever reason, like for a long time, the Red Cross didn't care, and they let video games use their symbol to represent health packs, such that became a standard symbol for health packs in video games. But then, like 10 years ago or so, the International Red Cross decided that no, you can't be using their symbol. Yeah. This is actually something I just realized you could do. You could like draw, if you draw a Red Cross that is not the Swiss cross, but is any of the other crosses, for example, the Christian cross, or like the most famous Christian cross, or the Greek Orthodox cross, or the one like this. So like if you do that, you're good. Other people will use hearts. Like Mrs. Moonson. And you've successfully convinced me, Can, that you are not Mrs. Moonson's alt, because she uses a heart and you use it. First aid, they use green, but like green isn't as pretty as red. I like red more. Yeah. So in Japan, the Christian cross is used as like a metal symbol, similar to how in the West, if you're making like a metal band, you might put 666, or you might put like a pentagram to be like, ooh, look how edgy we are. We're so metal. were cult. But anyways, in Japan, they will use the Christian cross. And when you think about it, having a Roman torture device, last execution device, is kind of metal. Like, I think the Japanese may be actually correct on this. There's some VTubers on Twitter that have like a purple cross emoji in their yeah. So I follow some VTubers on Twitter, and they have this emoji in their title, and I'm not sure if they are like actually Christian. There have been a few attempts at like actually Christian, like spread the good news type VTubers. Or if they're just using it because the like Catholicism and vampires is like kind of edgy. It's kind of funny for vampires to wear a cross necklace. Like, it makes sense. Like it's appropriate symbolically, but it like really contradicts the whole idea that vampires are like repelled away by crosses. But like, now that we are less Christian as a society, it makes yeah. So like, maybe the lore you could say, if you want your vampire to have like a cross on there. I do like vampires. I think vampires are one of the most attractive Halloween monster, because they come and suck your blood. What could be hotter than that? So anyways, maybe your vampire has developed a resistance to crosses. By like, there's some poisons in real life. Because I draw my vampire nurse girl in 9% there's so like the aesthetics have kind of been combined. Partly because like, I suspect this might be partly because of Japanese influence. So like, because like vampires are associated with death and crosses are death. So like, and like, crosses are associated with vampires. It's just that in some lore, the crosses repel the vampire. But maybe your vampire has been like microdosing on crosses. It's just like by wearing a cross necklace. And now they have an immunity, just like in real life, humans can take little doses of certain poisons, almost exclusively venoms.
Then they're not really poisons then, are they?
Okay, I guess if you're being technical, that might be the case. So if you take a little dose of some venoms, then you will actually... Yes, microdosing Catholicism until you develop a resistance to it. Just like if you take a little bit of snake venom and inject that into you every day, you will develop an immunity to that particular venom. In fact, how we make antivenoms for many creatures, so you have cows. Moo. And the cows, you inject them with a little bit of venom each day, and then the cow develops resistance, and then you take the cow's blood, and you filter out the antivenom from from the, you filter out the anti-venom from the rest of the blood, or so I assume. I'm actually not that knowledgeable in this subject. And then you have anti-venom that if someone gets snuck.
That's not the word.
Snicking?
No, that's not the word either. You're thinking bit or bitten.
Oh, right. Yeah, it's the same idea. If that pans out, I don't know if that will pan out, but if it pans out, like this is potentially a way you could make a very powerful anti-venom. So it's just, this is because the immune system learns how to eat this particular venom molecule. It like gloms onto it and renders it harmless. And thus, if you keep doing this constantly, you will always have enough of the anti-venom particles in your blood, but you can't ever take a break. And this is why we can't make like a venom vaccine. Because you need a whole bunch of the anti-chemical all at once. Or so that's my understanding. In the case of vaccines, you only need to get them once or a few times. It depends on how effective the vaccine is and how clever the bacterium or virus you are vaccinating against is. But that trains, I think, their T cells, and then they go hang out. They're maybe it's T memory cells. And they go hang out in your lymph nodes, and then if there's ever a report that the corresponding evil is upon them, then they reproduce a whole bunch and protect your body, producing just the right chemical to kill them. I think that's how the immune system and vaccines work. Well, some things like most of the COVID vaccines, I hope this isn't too political, how the COVID vaccines work is they inject RNA virus into you. Can I draw you a maid outfit? Yes, you can draw me however you want, but I will especially like a maid outfit. I'm here to be consumed and to entertain, so like, the worst case scenario, and I understand that this worst case scenario might not be good, but, the worst case scenario is that I dislike it and scroll away, but I would like a maid outfit. Fan art if you draw that. I don't know if you're on Twitter, but take... I like maid outfits too. They are cute. It may be the case that real Victorian maids didn't wear things that look that similar to our modern maid outfits, but that's okay, because what did I draw? What did I write down? I wasn't paying attention. I think I started writing Mint, because Maid Mint is the most famous maid VTuber that I know of. A decision I have to make when I'm making the next piece of software, when I rebuild Mint. So I was starting to write RNA virus, because how the COVID vaccine works is it modifies a tiny patch of cells with a virus in your body, and then those cells produce a protein that looks just like the COVID-19 virus, and then your body learns how to defeat these proteins, which coincidentally are on the outside of the virus. And that's roughly how the vaccines work, is my understanding, based on an infographic I read once. So something I have to decide when I go to rebuild myself is, do I draw myself in high resolution, or do I carry over the pixelated look I have now? Because the original reason I made myself pixelated was that I wasn't that good at drawing, and also at the time I drew my base sprites for this model, I didn't have a drawing tablet. And thus, if you draw pixels, it's much easier to go through and manually fix them. Pixelate is fun. Yeah! It is fun. I think maybe what I will opt for is higher resolution than my current model, but not like full resolution. Pixelated look is really cute, but you can probably find a middle ground and do pixelated but more pixels. This is true. Maybe like, I don't know. Maybe make my eyes higher resolution. The truth is that I haven't been consistent at all with the resolution. So like pixel art snobs would really like how you see my ringlets. Those are much higher resolution than my eyes, and my mouth is a different resolution, and my ears are a different resolution. Some pixel art snobs call those mixels. I think it's fine though. We see it done in a decent number of video games. Also, like, so when you are doing a pixel arty game, you have two options. Oh, let me make myself small again. So I have so that I have two, so that I can see the screen again. So you can see the screen again. What was I saying? Oh, right. I was saying, something. I was saying something. Oh, right. You have two options in pixel graphics in video games, and because, my visual software is very similar, so you can either have each sprite low resolution, and then you render it onto a high resolution screen, or you can have the whole low res sprites, high res screen, or you can do the opposite and have, or not the opposite, well, I don't know, you can render sprites, but then render them onto a low res screen, and then to make it so, because modern monitors are really high resolution, then you have to like upscale it using nearest neighbor, and that gives you a pixelated look. The advantage of doing the one on the left is that this way you can have object rotations and they look good-ish. They look good enough. Or they look clear, that's what I should say. They look clear, and you don't have to manually draw every single rotation manually. The advantage over here is that each pixel size is the same size, and they're all aligned with each other. So if you take an image that's like this, and you rotate it, it becomes blocky, like I can't draw it, but like the Minecraft sword. And this is because historically computers were too slow to have actually high-resolution screens. This is historically how pixel art was done, not for the aesthetic, but was because it was the only option, because you only had 600 pixels tall for a game or less. 600 by 800 used to be the standard for monitors, and if your video card couldn't negotiate a better or higher resolution, it defaulted to this thing called VGA mode, and this might still happen in some computers nowadays. I'm not exactly sure the current situation with VGA mode, but anyways, VGA mode is super generic, and this way you can at least see something on your screen while you attempt to debug the driver problems you have. So I don't ever do programming on stream. And the main reason for this is that I'm running commands at the console, and I feel afraid that I could very easily leak information. But I recently had the idea that actually something I could do is I could set up a virtual machine. So I could set up a virtual machine, and this way it wouldn't have any eldritch abominations that might hurt my viewers. Or embarrassing secrets I don't want to share. And this way I could just stream the whole computer, or the whole computer. It's not a real computer. I can't do air quotes, but there should be air quotes there. And then you can see me opening and shutting windows, and then outside there I'm streaming the virtual machine. And that's the idea I had. I haven't set it up yet. I'm not sure if a programming stream would actually be interesting, because it's not visual and flashy. On the other hand, and also I'm thinking hard, and thus I might not have as much spare brain power to think about such things, to keep constantly talking. However, I do seem to have a mode where I can just tell my brain that, oh, we're now in talking mode, and then I'll just keep talking while I do other stuff. However, the other stuff I'm doing is potentially a lot less clever if I'm focusing on talking. And I consider the talking to be one of the more important parts of streaming. So that's something I might do. There's also a lot of compromises between a full virtual machine and various other ways of sandboxing. Normally, sandboxing is used for software you don't completely trust. That's not how you spell sandbox. Sandbox. For example, web browsers, they execute JavaScript, which is what websites are. Have their web apps are written in for the most part. And it has to be sandboxed because you don't want to navigate to some random web page, and for that random web page to be able to reach down and grab your files and then email them off to a server, because you might have real private files on your software, on your computer. I do. Most people do. Or it could do something else evil, like install malware or something. This happened last decade. So like the 2010s, Java applets used to exist. But the problem was that Java applets had, I don't understand why, but they weren't very well sandboxed. And it was in a way that Oracle felt like they couldn't just fix. So Java applets could modify your computer in almost arbitrary ways. Or at least it was very easy for them to get a hold of such permissions. And thus, this is a reason why Java applets were deleted from the internet. We used to have these things called Flash applets. If I'm guessing the age group of my demographic, probably the people in chat remember playing Flash games as a kid. I guess I probably don't have that many people that are like under 10 in chat. I kind of hope not. I'm kind of frightened by children. So Flash applets died for similar security reasons. Also just like, that's not how you spell applet. Applet. Also, HTML5 came out. HTML. I think HTML5 came out in like... Ah, thank you for the hearts! HTML came out probably in like 2008 or something. I don't know. But it took a while to catch on and get implemented. Back then, they'd actually kind of release like specifications all at once. Nowadays, it's a so-called living document, and they just constantly make changes to what's considered standard HTML, which is perhaps not great. Well, also, Google controls like Google's Chromium. They control, so Google develops Chromium, and in terms of rendering engines, it controls basically the entire browser market. The only other options are Firefox, which I've used my whole life since it was invented. And then there is a different web browser that isn't based on Chromium, but that's in development, called Ladybird. And it was originally just a project by some guy who thought, hey, I want to make my own OS from scratch. So he started writing his own OS from scratch, and they wrote, of course, because I think it was called Selenium OS. Selenium OS, because Selenium OS wants to do everything from scratch rather than like have other software running on it from like Linux or Windows or whatever. They needed to make their own web browser. That's not how you spell Ladybird. And then people realized, so you might be looking at this market diagram and say, hey, not everyone uses Chrome. There's Edge. There's Microsoft Edge, i.e. Internet Explorer reincarnated. Edge. And Microsoft Edge controls like a decent share of the market. However, Microsoft Edge, the rendering engine, it's secretly Chromium, and Chromium's controlled by Google, more or less. So Chromium is open source, but then you take bits, so you put inside your own software, and you can take out any googly parts you don't want, but like Google still has some control. But anyways, There's another engine. There is Apple Safari. Apple. And it is also controls a decent share of the market, in part because on iOS, every browser has to run Apple WebKit underneath, even if it's called Chromium. And Apple WebKit is closely related to Chromium because they're both based on WebKit. So Chrome used to be based on WebKit. But WebKit, Google split off and made their own thing, and now Apple's the only one that uses mainline WebKit. So I was talking about Ladybird. Ladybird. So Ladybird, they're building it from scratch, which everyone always says, hey, like the standard devices, don't try to make your own web browser. Web browsers are exceedingly complicated these days, but making your own S from scratch is already a folly movement. However, making your own OS is like really appealing to like computer nerds because OSs are cool in a way that OSs have picked up a lot of chaff over the years to maintain backwards compatibility with older software. So if you're building an OS from scratch, you do it differently. Like Unix, which is what Linux is based on.
That is not how you spell Unix.
Yeah, I'm not maybe it's I think this is Unix. Unix. So Unix is it's the ancestor of Linux. That's in fact why Linux is called Unix, is because it's Linus's Unix. And Linus was the guy who invented Linux. That's definitely not how you spell Linus, but I'm not looking it up. So to be clear, Linus didn't want to call Linux because it seemed too egotistical, but the guy who was managing the computer he uploaded the files onto, because there weren't very many computers back then, he labeled the folder Linux. And that's why it's called Linux. It's because of some sysadmin somewhere. But anyways, people looked at the Selenium OS Ladybird project, and they looked at the disappointing situation with the web browser market, and like people are like not really happy with Mozilla, partly because Mozilla's market share has been going down. Mozilla, I think at one point, Firefox used to be the most popular browser. Back in the days of Internet Explorer, which was bad, and Firefox, which was good, and then Google Chrome came along, and Google Chrome took up the entire market, more or less. And people are grumpy at Mozilla, who are the creators of Firefox. And thus some people are looking at Ladybird and saying, ooh, maybe these people will save the internet. I kind of hope they do. I don't expect them to. Hello, James! Every week I bake muffins and then I keep them fresh in a gallon Ziploc bag. Bring them to work each morning. I like muffins. I like muffins too, James. Let me look at the list of things. List of things I wanted to talk about. Aha. Oh, you like the stream. I'm glad. So I've talked about... I haven't talked about how much I'm frustrated with TensorFlow and Python package manager in general. So TensorFlow is the AI library I use to run my model. Okay, so to run the vtuber model I use TensorFlow, but to actually turn the webcam footage into data, I use a model that's from the TensorFlow tutorial. And TensorFlow is a Python library. And unfortunately, Python and TensorFlow don't keep their updates in sync. Which means my system Python, which is updated by Arch Linux, which is what I run my computer on. I'm not that big of a fan of Arch Linux, but it's what I use. That's not right, but oh well. I think there's a U in here somewhere. So that means when my Python updates to a new version, and then it means TensorFlow is no longer compatible with it. And the correct way to install Python packages, i.e. what pip, the Python package manager, tells you to do, is to use virtual environments, which are... It's like a box. It's kind of like a virtual machine. It's a box where you have all your particular versions of Python packages for this particular unit of software. And then you have the global packages out here. So I was being responsible when I found a package that couldn't. So my model uses a library that's closely related to TensorFlow, but technically isn't TensorFlow. And thus, I had a package that wasn't in the Arch Linux repositories. That's according to pip, you aren't supposed to install a package globally. But if you go to make a virtual environment, TensorFlow isn't compatible with the version of Python I have, because TensorFlow releases at a different schedule than Python, and TensorFlow is proactively anti-compatibility. So if a new version of Python comes out here, and then a new version of TensorFlow comes out here, because TensorFlow, it preemptively looks at the current version of Python and says, we won't install on anything newer than that. This means that in this area, if you're running the latest version of Python, it's impossible to install TensorFlow with pip. Now, and that was the case why I thought for several months that I just couldn't stream. However, I fixed the problem, namely by ignoring pip. Pip says, don't install globally, because that could ruin your packages from the package manager. And what they say here is correct. Because the system package manager, in my case, Pacman, and pip are modifying the same set of files, pip might attempt to uninstall a file without Pacman learning about it, and this could cause problems. However, I just passed the flag that says do it anyway, and then I could install the library. Because you see, even though I drew that diagram that suggested you couldn't install TensorFlow for this whole time period of time. You actually, for some reason, Pacman from Arch Linux has a package that is allowed to install. I might be getting too technical, So sorry if I've chased away viewers by being too technical. Perhaps this was a bad topic. But anyways, I'm going to continue anyways. TensorFlow. What was I thinking about? Oh right, you can install TensorFlow through the package manager, and thus I was able to install the third library that required TensorFlow successfully, and that's how I'm streaming today. Also, my voice is giving out, and thank you everybody for watching. I really appreciate you coming by. I'm feeling braver about streaming now. Perhaps next time I will stream like with actual content. Thank you for the likes. Yay! I actually have the thumbnails and the video game demo all selected out for a video game to stream, and I almost streamed that instead of just rambling on and yapping about random stuff like I did for this stream. Thank you for watching the stream. Thank you for watching. Bye bye. See you again, hopefully soon. It was lovely time. Oh! Thank you for watching. Bye bye.